The fragrance of broiled flesh permeated the atmosphere. My garment was damp with perspiration, partially from the warmth, predominantly from the imminent confrontation. I, John, had just placed the residence keys, those I acquired through my own exertion, on the outdoor dining surface when my mother, Emily's voice fractured like a whip crack. "You pilfered your brother's prospects." The chatter instantly ceased. Plates froze in midair. Everyone gazed at me as if I had been apprehended with crimson fluid on my extremities. I did not recoil. I simply retrieved my ale, took a slow draught, and thought, the censure begins now. I departed the family home at 16, not by choice, but because remaining signified destruction. My parents funneled every resource into my elder sibling, Daniel, the favored son, his vehicle, his educational fees, his apartment. Concurrently, I cooked sandwiches at night, replenished stock at daybreak, and studied in the interludes. Recreation was never an option. Birthday celebrations were ignored. Missed employment periods meant lapsed rental payments. Yet, I kept my focus down, conserved every coin, and mastered the principle of autonomy. By 24, I possessed what no one anticipated: a mortgage authorization in my designation, my house, my liberty, and, evidently, in my parents' perception, Daniel's stolen destiny. The outdoor feast was not the deception. It was the dawn of the expos. The authentic treachery arrived a week later. A rap at my entrance, a paper envelope thrust into my hands, a legal summons. The plaintiffs, my parents. The allegation: intentional interference in the financial opportunity of their son, Daniel. I laughed so heartily the legal messenger raised an eyebrow. My own kin were suing me for laboring too diligently, for achieving success without their aid. But the more I read, the more sinister it became. They weren't merely filing nonsense. They were demanding monetary restitution. The amount was almost precisely what I had saved for my initial deposit. That was the instant the sorrow extinguished and the fire ignited in its place. I didn't toss the documents, didn't contact them screaming. I sat at my kitchen table, the one I constructed from discount timber, and activated my computer. Action 1. Engage a solicitor. Not just any lawyer, but a family law specialist with a reputation for dismantling baseless claims. Action 2. Amass evidence. Payment records from 16 onward. Banking records, tenancy contracts, digital correspondence where my parents boasted about financing Daniel through failed degrees after failed vocations. Action 3. Smile, because I perceived the pit they had excavated and realized that they had handed me the implement. At the tribunal, my parents arrived with Daniel trailing like a specter. He avoided my gaze. Emily clutched her ornaments like she was acting in her own melodrama. Father expanded his chest, convinced his utterance was still sick. Their counsel, a weary man who clearly accepted this case for a fee, contended that I had diverted family assets by purchasing my own property, thereby depriving Daniel of reasonable parental support. The judge's brow nearly touched the ceiling. My solicitor slid a collection of papers across the surface. Every academic grant I'd secured, placed alongside my brother's history, 3 abandoned studies, 2 intoxicated driving offenses my parents settled, and a year residing without payment in a city apartment they financed. The contrast was clinical, brutal, incontrovertible. By the time my counsel concluded, the courtroom felt like a wake. And then came my opportunity. The judge permitted me to speak. I stood as impassively as stone and said, "Your Honor, I did not steal my brother's future. I constructed mine independently." I paused. If their definition of familial affection is the depletion of one child to bolster another, then the sole offense I am guilty of is refusing to participate in the charade. Silence, save for the sound of Daniel's chair groaning as he shifted in shame. The verdict was rapid. Action dismissed with prejudice, meaning they could never again drag me into judicial proceedings for this matter. But the true impact was not legal. It was monetary. The judge commanded my parents to settle my legal expenditure, tens of thousands of currency, capital they did not possess. That evening, my device illuminated with communications. "Emily, how could you inflict this upon your own kin?" "Father, unappreciative wretch." "Daniel, nothing. Just silence." And I smiled, because for once the quiet was louder than their accusations. Weeks later, I hosted my own outdoor feast. The identical scent of broiled flesh, the identical dining surfaces, but this time, surrounded by companions, people who recognized the value of effort, not entitlement. I placed my house keys on the table again, but no one screamed. No one accused. They simply raised a toast. And in that moment, I grasped the reality. I didn't require their sanction, didn't require their legacy, didn't require their surname. One possessed my dwelling, my autonomy, my prospects, and the best element, the litigation that was supposed to shatter me, had instead bankrupted their deception. So, if you are pondering the subsequent events, here they are. In simple terms, they attempted to sue me for forging a livelihood. Instead, they paid for it.